Hi everyone, I'm Emma from Soul Stirring Branding, and I'm really excited today to be answering a question from the lovely Lucy, who is a newbie business owner, with a question that I think is going to be really universal. She is creating her very first website, and it's a product-based business where she's writing and selling books, and specifically her books are written in Armenian, which is from her culture. But really this is a question like that, whether you're a product-based business or a service-based business, it's sort of across the board, which is, her question was, how do you balance a website that is a conduit for selling things while also providing value? And I think to answer your question, Lucy, I don't think that there's like a disconnect there between the selling of the products and the providing of the value. Really, providing value will automatically lead into selling more of your products. So they work hand in hand. Like it's not like, I guess traditionally we're being told you need to create some kind of opt-in, some kind of lead magnet, something like a free gift on your website. But it's not just a box to be checked, because I think that that's where the issue can sometimes occur, right? Because we think, oh, let me just create something generic as my free value, so that I've like checked that box. Now, I really want anyone listening to kind of reframe that mindset. Don't just do it as I should be doing this. It really is an important part of conveying your expertise, your credibility, giving people a sense of what to expect when they actually buy from you, whether you do have a service or you do have a product like a book, or any other product for that matter. I really think that it's an important part of the process, right? So what does it mean to provide value? Maybe that's a good definition to define. So that could be anything, really, anything that any kind of free content that you would provide. So that could look like, the regular blog posts that you do. It could look like maybe you started a podcast, or you just record audios or videos like what I'm doing here, answering these questions. It could be that it's like a downloadable ebook. A lot of clients will do like downloadable meditations, things like that. Or, because we're obviously talking here about books, it could be that it is a sample chapter from the book, or like, I don't know, like maybe if it's like a beautifully illustrated book, they can have, a free illustration from that book or whatever. I mean, you've really got to tailor it to what makes sense for your business. But I think the most important thing to think about is when you're starting from scratch, when you're at this sort of ground zero level, you've got to give people a reason to care, right? Let's just imagine you're having no sort of content on your website except for like, here's my books, 1, 2, 3, and maybe you've got like, traditionally what I see is just really short descriptions of books. And I'm like, how does that sell the book, And then I guess that's where you sort of go onto Amazon and you're trying to read through the reviews and you're trying to get a little bit more information, because you're thinking, oh gosh, I really don't want to buy this book if I'm not sure about it. So that's where I really want you to build this ecosystem around your website, your brand, your content, your products and services that supports you in positioning yourself as this credible business, this credible website, this expert in your field if you are, positioning yourself as a personal brand. We really want to build this ecosystem around it. So absolutely, I think especially when you're starting from that level where nobody knows you, nobody is actively seeking you out, which obviously can happen a little more organically when you are an established business, and you're getting referrals and traffic through SEO and all that kind of stuff. But before that, I mean, and that's not to say that providing valuable free content isn't an important strategy for established businesses too, because it absolutely is. Like, you've got to keep the kind of the wheels turning in your business. You can't expect that because you've had success in the past or you've had clients in the past, it's just going to keep rolling in, because sometimes it doesn't work like that. You do need to keep working on your marketing. So I guess this kind of ties into this idea that a lot of people have, which is when I build it, people are going to come, or if I build it, they will come, whatever the saying is, which is completely false, as a lot of us know these days. Just because you create your books and put them on your website doesn't mean people are going to find you and people are going to buy it. Unfortunately, imagine how good it would be if it was that easy. But unfortunately, no, that's not the case. Or whatever it is that you are creating here, if you've got services that you're putting on your website, or it doesn't matter what you're doing, it's really important to remember that people are not automatically just going to magically find you just because you make your website live. So that's a really important thing to think about. So when you're talking about providing value, I feel like that's part of the marketing process, really. So it's like the first stage in the process, really, which is what I take clients on, is working out, developing the foundation, developing what is the message behind what you're doing here, and the heart behind what you're doing, and who are you trying to attract? Do you know who your ideal client or your ideal reader is for your books or for your website or whatever it is you're creating? Understanding the, I guess, fundamentals of your brand strategy. That's sort of the first phase, right? This is kind of like the bigger picture. Second phase is obviously building out, what does your logo look like? What are your colors? What are your fonts? What are your graphics? What photography are you using? How does that all paint a picture, which then ties back to your overall brand strategy, your message, the heart of what you do. Then we're moving on to the phase where we go, okay, so what's the website going to look like? Creating the different touch points for your business, touch points as in places where your audience, your ideal clients can sort of touch your brand and interact with it, basically. Okay, so you've got to the stage here where you've built your website, you've put, you put your products on there, you've got it all working, great. But then it's a matter of, okay, you can't just stop there. So many businesses just stop at that point and are confused about why things aren't working, or why they're not getting the sales that they thought they would. Unfortunately, it does need to be a sort of more of an active process from there. Just establishing the website is not enough. So yeah, I would be thinking, Lucy, and anyone else who's watching, when you're starting from scratch, I guess that's when I would go harder than ever, in terms of building up that ecosystem of value, of content, of things that will draw your ideal client or customer in and make them go, wow, I love everything that I'm reading or I'm hearing about or I'm seeing so far. So it feels like a natural next step to go and buy a product or a service. So absolutely, you're talking about how to balance it. I would say absolutely, you're only going to have 3 products, Lucy. That's what I'm hearing so far. You're going to have your 3 books. Obviously, those are going to feature very strongly on your website and on your homepage, and you want to sort of make that a key feature. But, you can imagine if that's all you've got on a website, it's going to feel kind of flat. There's not going to be much depth to that website. So I would really encourage you to think about, once again, that word ecosystem, which I really like because it kind of makes me think what is an ecosystem? I don't really know what the definition is, but it's kind of I imagine there's all these different layers to it. There's all these different animals and plants and insects and the fungi and whatever else. We've got all these different elements all working together to create something that thrives. That's how I would define it in this sense, right? So that's what I want you to kind of do with your brand, with your website, is to really think about these different things that can work together. And what that means, I guess, in terms of when we think of an ecosystem, is that things aren't competing with each other, right? Like they're working in harmony. So when you're thinking about creating your free content, I want you to think about things that will complement your books without detracting from the value, if that makes sense. Because I guess that's a fear that a lot of people have, is I'm going to create this content, like I don't want to give too much away, is what I hear a lot. Or I don't, like there's got to be a reason for someone to want to pay for something versus all the valuable free content that you can provide. And I totally get that perspective. But on the other hand, I think that by trying to give away too little, or trying to really like play your cards really close to your chest, and keeping everything kind of behind the payment gateway, it's going to hold people back from really engaging with you and buying. I think, like, don't be afraid to give away value, because it will kind of like come back to you tenfold, I reckon. It's all about building that know, like, and trust factor, so getting people to know you, liking you, trusting you by giving them content, giving them a window into your world, how you think, how you work, what you have to share, what your message is, what your what are your values, why are you doing this work? And I know you shared that really beautiful story about what has inspired you to start these books, and that is gold, Lucy. Really convey that as part of your story, because that's what helps people to buy into that journey and want to be part of it, as more than just a business, more than just a commodity, but really sort of this movement that people want to get behind, something that aligns with their values, something where what they see in you is something that they want to express about themselves, like it relates to even their identity, right? By buying your products, by reading your blog articles, by consuming your content. So it's a very long-winded answer, but I hope that kind of helped to explain that. I would really encourage you to think outside the box when it comes to providing that value. And also when it comes to your, where you are actually selling your 3 books that you talked about, don't be afraid to go into a bit of depth when talking about it. As I mentioned, I think earlier in the video, I see so many products for sale where it's like, really short description, maybe like 1 or 2 photos where you can't really get a sense of what the book even looks like. Like, really don't be afraid to show the entire book. Like, even if it's a video where you flip through the book, or you show beautiful images of quite a lot of pages, it's not going to be the same experience as someone physically having the book. Just because you see, like, even hypothetically, every single page of the book on your website as like, a way to promote it, it's not like that's going to be the same experience as being able to have the book in your home and being able to read it to whoever, your child or whoever, you're sharing this book with. Does anyone really want to go on the website or go on their phone and zoom in on the photo and read the text and go, oh, wow, I really enjoyed that book? Like, no, it's not the same experience. So my message to you would be, don't be afraid to really give people an in-depth look at what the book's all about, because that's going to build that trust factor where people go, wow, I can really see that. I love the story. I love the illustration. I love how it's all put together. I can see the value, right? So that's another way that I guess you're adding value by making that buying decision really easy, because I think that we all forget it's kind of scary to make a purchase. Like, books might be a small example of this. Some people have obviously thousands of dollars worth of product, or you know, a service worth thousands of dollars. And that's even scarier. Like the more money you're spending, the more you're like, oh, should I, shouldn't I? And you're kind of like teetering on this edge of not knowing whether you should buy or not. And I always say this to people because I think it's really easy as the business owner, and especially if you've been in business a long time, to kind of forget about how that might feel for your client or customer, to think about pulling the trigger on making that purchase. It is nerve-wracking because you don't 100% know what to expect, and you're wondering whether you're going to like it, whether you're going to get value out of it. So I really think the more that you can detail about it, if it is, well, especially if it's like the more they're paying, the more you want to explain it. Obviously, your books are probably not going to be super expensive, I'm assuming, because most books aren't. But still, I would really encourage you to like really be able to give people a sense of what they're buying, and not hide that away and think that somehow like you need to not show that because then people won't want to buy, because I don't think that that's true. And when you've only got 3 products, it's quite easy to go into a bit more depth. Obviously, if you've got like 100 products on your website, or 50 products, or even like 20 products, it's going to take you much longer to flesh that content out. And especially if you're the kind of business where you cycle through products with seasons or something like that, then I understand you probably don't have the time to go into a huge amount of depth. But if this is a product that is going to be for sale forever or for the foreseeable future, then, you know, it's worth the investment to take really good quality images to really showcase, you know, the look of the book, talk a little bit more about the story, even like sending it to a lot of people for free so that you can actually build up your reviews, because you're not going to have that from the get-go. So you really want to be able to actually get people's eyes on it and give people a reason to want to buy it. And that might be in the beginning to give these books away, like just a certain set of them, so that you can get those reviews and testimonials, because that's another really important part of building up that credibility, which is a really hard journey when you're starting from scratch, because it's like, what is my credibility, you know? And you need to build that over time, and providing that free value is one of those methods, and there's quite a few other methods that you'll also want to explore. Another one of your questions was, how do I set it up so when I add new things, it becomes seamless versus an afterthought? So, you know, how do you set up your website in a way that it will grow with you, is basically the question. And I think when, you know, part of that might come down to the platform that you choose. If you choose something like WordPress, it's gonna, you know, you pretty much, there's nothing you can't do. It's not going to limit you there. But if you're selling products, you might be looking at something like Shopify. Once again, like there shouldn't be too many limitations. I mean, I'm assuming you don't want to do anything too crazy, you know, unusual with your website when you mention about adding new things. I'm assuming they're going to be pretty standard things, really. So what I would say to that is, you know, like there's not really a lot that you can't do when it comes to most of these website platforms today. You want to think about your website like it's sort of like it's a house, I guess. So I guess the foundation of that house, you want to make sure that that's rock solid with like a proper platform that you're using, right? But then it's like you can easily build extensions and renovate and do different things. It's not like you have to build your house and then that's it, you can't touch it. Like, I don't think there's really any website platforms today where that happens. I guess the only thing would be if you hired a developer who custom coded everything, and then you'd have to go back to them for every change. But likely you're going to be working on a platform that has a system in the back end where you can go in and you can make changes yourself, or, you know, get the support you need to do so. So I would say that, you know, it can't hurt for sure for you to actually plan out, okay, I'm starting off, I've got 3 books, and I'm going to be creating some blog articles or whatever you're doing. But I guess you can think about the longer term if you do have specific plans, and make sure that your website platform can support that. That would be an important step. Make sure that your whatever payment processor you're using and that type of thing is going to be able to support that journey. But apart from that, with websites, it's super easy to modify content, move sections around, like as you create new products that you want to feature more. That should be a pretty seamless process. So I would say as long as you sort of get the fundamentals right, then your website should be able to easily grow with you. But if you were to choose that, like the foundation or the fundamentals that are limiting you in some way, that could be a factor. Like some people start their websites on programs like Wix and things like that, and maybe that's not something that is going to grow with you in the best way, for an example. But if you start with the foundation of a website platform that is flexible and is going to grow with you, I would then say like it should be a fairly easy process to continue to modify your homepage and add products and add content, because these days the website platforms make that super easy for us to do so. So don't be afraid of getting started. Don't feel like it has to be perfect or I can't even launch it, because then you probably won't launch for another 6 months. Like that's what I see. Some clients get stuck in perfectionism mode, and it's like, gosh, we could have launched this months ago. And then you're stuck with your old website or no website, depending on what you have. So definitely I would say, like, don't be afraid to get started. Make sure that you've got the right fundamentals. But then, you can modify it as you go. And I guess learning your website platform and feeling empowered in the process of creating content and adding content to your website is going to set you up for the whole of your business. Like you don't necessarily want to be dependent on some sort of web developer to make every single change for you, because not only could that get expensive as a new business owner, potentially with a limited budget, but also then you're reliant on somebody else, so that anything you want to do might take extra time and so on. Like it's totally okay if you do want to outsource that, but I think having that level of training and empowerment to know how to use your website and add your content is crucial. So I'd really encourage you to do so. So I hope that helped, Lucy. A bit of a long answer there, but don't be afraid to provide value. Don't be afraid to show in depth what your products are, and don't be afraid about your website evolving and changing over time, because it will. Like that's natural. You won't be doing anything wrong if your website evolves like it should, or otherwise you are actually probably doing something wrong if your website doesn't evolve in years and years, because it's natural for our business to change over time. Like this is natural sort of flow as things evolve, as we step closer into our purpose and what we should be doing, and get more clarity. This is the business journey, and the evolution of your brand is a natural thing. So don't be afraid of that. All right, I hope that this helped, and it was really great to hear from you. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.